Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. Today we've got an exciting Hoodrick mirror matchup with excellent micro, market madness and a devastating night chain. This match was played on the Polysseum finals from October. If you are interested in playing these tournaments yourself, then check out the description where we left the link for you to join it. My name is Ratz, I'm a very experienced player from the Poly Champions Discord, and with me today is Meirsterlampe.
Hi everyone, I'm Meirsterlampe. I've been playing Polytopia at a high level on Poly Champions and Challenger mode for about a year now. So looking at the spawns, we got Vorce in the north corner, playing as Brown Hoodrick, and we got Chris in the eastern corner, slightly more towards the south, playing as the Purple Hoodrick. They both got 2 animals in their capital, 4 forests, so pretty even spawns. Vorce got a lighthouse, but that is not that important in Hoodrick mirror matchups. They also both got decent resource indicators, so they should expect a relatively good city density.
To be fair, the 2 animals on the capital on Hoodrick are guaranteed, so aside from the 4 forests that they both have, it's indeed very similar. They also both have at least 2 animals on their secondary village, as you can see here. So they both are able to go hunting and have a very similar open here, where nobody gets behind for no reason because of bad generation or something like that. They have a very similar start.
Yeah, it's also worth pointing out that they both go for the standard Hoodrick opening of training a warrior in turn 0.
Yeah, you don't really want to train an archer on Hoodrick in the beginning because the arch costs 3 stars, which would not enable you to get a workshop on turn 3, like both players did here with their capital. And they would be missing a star for that. So therefore the warrior fulfills that role perfectly with costing only 2 stars and not delaying the first workshop more than 1 turn. Because you also want to expand, right? You want to get those extra villages here, and crucially they enable you to train more units to combat other things and contest villages, and also to get more workshops in the future.
Yeah, and like the main point why you train a warrior over an archer is that if you train a warrior, you end up with exactly 9 stars in turn 3, which is just enough to buy hunting and hunt 2 animals. Yeah, and so now in turn 4, we will see the first explorer of the game in the second city, as you often see it with Hoodrick. The explorer ends up being quite good, even though in the beginning there was like a moment where you really had to be afraid that that explorer would just go around the lake and not give as good of information as it ended up giving.
Chris does the same, and he also has his explorer going the right direction. Both players get the meeting stars, both players get their village, the second village explorer, and both players also cannot upgrade their third village because they don't have 2 animals on that. Voss does decide to take climbing here, which is a very devastating blow to his economy. However, it does enable him to contest this village that is close to him, and also it enables him to contest this ruin further down even.
Yeah, it's a lot harder for Chris to fight with because his capital and also his third city just are further away than Vorce's city, at least to the neutral city. But now, let's take a look at this, because Vorce managed to secure the city and now also get a defense boosted warrior onto the ruin. Now, if you wonder why is that warrior defense boosted, usually you only get a defense boost in cities and on mountains, but Hoodrick starts with the archery tech, and the archery tech comes with a defense bonus on forest. So all your units get a defense bonus on forest, and in that archer against warrior interaction, you need 2 archers to kill a warrior that is not defense boosted, and you need 3 archers against a warrior that is defense boosted. And because of this, Vorce ends up securing the ruin here.
Yeah, we get forestry on Chris. Chris says, well, I can't really contest this effectively, so I'm gonna continue with my economy rush. We see forestry relatively early on Hoodrick here. And on the other hand, Voss can't really do the same because he went climbing and trained so many units to be able to contest these things. Also the ruin I would like to mention, another explorer. The way that the ruin works is it can give you all these kind of things like stars, 10 stars, 3 population, an explorer, a swordsman, or a random technology. However, the explorer can only be a result of the ruin if there is at least 1 fog tile in the 2 radius around the ruin. So in this case, you could say, well, there's no fog tile around the ruin because the ruin, the explorer can't work on water, but that doesn't count. The ruin still procs an explorer because there's fog in range. And therefore, actually gives him quite a lot of value with that ruin to get the lighthouse as well in the south. Slightly working towards a giant on his capital, but also crucially the vision, right?
Yeah, but
I just want to mention.
it did not help his economy that much as maybe like a population ruin, a star ruin, or even like a forestry ruin or an organization ruin would have helped him.
Yes.
So it's not the best result for his quite lackluster economy. Like we're looking at 8 stars per turn in turn 9. Like that's not usually what you want to see.
It is tough. Now here we see, usually we see always how archers prepare the units to make them low HP so the warriors can finish them off. But in this case, the reason Chris doesn't want to kill that warrior with the archer, with the warrior, is because if he does so, the warrior would be 1 tile further towards Voss, and therefore it would be easier for Voss to kill it, because there's a warrior and an archer in range that right now are not in range, but would be if he was to move 1 tile further up, and therefore he decides to not do it. Just take the kill on one of his archers to work towards a veteran archer also. Gonna keep that in mind, because veterans can give you a free recovery on a unit, or straight up have the unit with more HP running around. But in this case, Chris plays it relatively defensive. He just wants to work on his economy and play out his advantage, right? He sees how Voss did take climbing at a very early stage of the game where it did punish Voss's economy. And also, at this point, both players have 4 cities, so Chris just plays into this economy advantage here and continues to get another workshop, I believe, in the east here. There as well. That's a
No,
workshop,
it
yeah.
wasn't the best. I think he delays the 1Bs for more units.
Yeah, he trains more
because
units.
it's like really important to have enough units, or otherwise your opponent can just overwhelm you.
Yes, 100%. I always like to say, no, stop here. You can always like to say how economy is great, but the army is what wins games, right?
Yeah,
So
you're building your economy to make more military, basically.
Exactly. So I love, if you go back to turn 10 here, I was missing out on that comment here. Voss uses with 1 archer to shoot the warrior on the city there, because there is a mountain blocking Chris from actually retaliating on it. However, he did take climbing anyways, because there's a ruin on the east that he could step on that was on a mountain. So therefore he just gambled, or kind of, you can say gamble, but he did force Chris to take the climbing tech, and
yeah, like
yes.
it did set Chris's economy behind
Slightly.
like a fair amount. Like he's investing 8 stars into climbing. With 8 stars, he could have also upgraded his front city to level 3 and taken a workshop in his east city, which would have been plus 3 stars per turn. So it's not the worst trade for Vorce. But he obviously didn't
Yeah.
know that Chris also gets a Mountain Ruin for it.
If it was just for the attack there on the archer, it probably wouldn't have been worth it. Also because now he does get a lot of retaliation going on here. But also the Mountain Ruin is crucially can be very, very helpful, right? It can give
Yeah,
you
so-
a star run. I was gonna say it can give you stars, which basically makes a +2 trait in stars, and additionally you get attack for it. But also population could speed up your process towards a giant. Like the rune can snowball your gameplay a lot, but yeah, crucially Voss didn't know about it, so he did get punished for it at the end.
Yeah, looking at this turn, I feel like Vorce is overextending a little bit here. Like he's also sending that archer forward there in the west, and I'm not sure if he can support that push. So Vorce decided here to do the first hit with a warrior that is not immediately next to Chris's village, which means that his warrior actually ends up being out of range of a new warrior he's training this turn. And so now if you take a look at what Chris does here, he last hits that warrior with his own warrior. And now Vorce has less units in range that can help killing that warrior.
I see, because otherwise he would have been able to kill 2 warriors there, not just 1. Right, like in this case he attacked both the warriors on the city and the defense tile in the forest, but otherwise he would have been able to kill both warriors and further engage this effectively. So yes, I agree. That positioning was not optimal, but then again, this game is going to be decided by other plays other than small, slight mini misplays from one side here. Mistakes can happen here, right?
Yeah, it's just important to point out that like these kind of things often decide like, okay, how much value are you actually going to get out of your units? Like Archer Micro is a lot about stacking veteran kills and not taking unnecessary hits.
Here we see an Explorer from Voss, which crucially gives him another lighthouse. Also gives him a little bit of vision on the rest of the map. Now we see that there is basically a huge lake on the southwest of the map with a village in the south corner, a village in the west corner, and actually also one village in the lake that we can actually see from Voss's perspective here. We see the shorelines. There is more than likely a village in that lake. There is a village indeed, and that village can be reached by a bridge. However, the question is if that is even worth it, even if we have markets later down the line, because crucially that village underwater only has fish to upgrade it with, and fishing, unless the teams want to build a navy here, that village is not going to be really useful for either of these players right now.
I'm pretty sure that every lakes map on small has exactly one of these lake villages.
That would be a very interesting fact that I don't know if that's true or not, but maybe we can prove it.
Yeah, so I know that in continents it works exactly like that, for example.
Oi.
And on Pangaea as well.
Also, the Pangaea ocean cities are always decided on the map size, how many you have on the ocean.
Yeah, so what I want to ask you here is, do you agree with Vorce taking Explorer here over a Workshop? Because his economy really is not strong right now.
Although, I would argue... no, I was gonna say, if that lighthouse would have been crucial for the first giant, then I would have said, take that Explorer. But because that lighthouse... I mean, effectively, you're gonna get the first giant with sawmills, or not with the lighthouse in that case. So I would disagree here. We do take border growth here. I would like to touch that on Chris, unless you want to add something on the Voss's play from last turn.
You know, what I would like to say about Chris's turn here is that even though he would have the option to go aggressive with like his archer and his warrior there, for example, to kill like some more units of Vorce, he decides against it to prevent being out of position.
And he recovers the units and builds up. I would like to touch on this border growth in the city here. Do you agree with it? Because I always have people tell me, or I always have people argue, to try and take especially population growth on the first city that you want to get a giant on because it's faster. But in this case, I would argue it is actually faster to border growth that city. Why? Because the only way for you to get a giant in that city is with sawmills. And the fastest way to get a giant in that city, which is slightly cheaper for the first giant that is to border growth, because this way you don't need additional tech to get the first giant. Now you can use the rewinding forests that you gained with the border growth to get the first giant.
You have to mention that if you go for population growth here, he would already be at 3 out of 5 population for the next giant, and placing a sawmill here gives him 5 population. So if he went for the population growth choice, mathematics and the sawmill, and then immediately also place the Spark of Fortune, and he would be able to pop 2 giants instantly.
Yeah, but he needs the additional tech to do it, right?
Yeah,
it kind of also depends.
The first giant is more expensive, and maybe he doesn't even want to place the Spark of Fortune in the capital.
Yeah, I mean that's what I said. Like the first giant, actually, I mean the first giant technically is less expensive because he doesn't need to get additional tech for it. But further giants are more efficient, effectively speaking, if you get the sawmills first to get the first giant.
Yeah, he's paying more stars for his future giants, but the first giant is cheaper.
That's exactly what I wanted to say.
Okay, so you see, well, we keep seeing that archer warrior action, just trading units, and Vorce actually goes for the population growth here. Even though, if he went for border growth, he would be able. Well, he would also get like a significant amount of resources, but Vorce actually has enough forests in his capital so that he doesn't need mathematics to make a giant without population.
That's because of all the lighthouses, right? He's got 3 lighthouses. He needed only 2, but 3 lighthouses basically made him able to do that play with the killing monument.
Yeah, the lighthouses helped him get that giant without needing mathematics, and that's why he is able to go for population growth here. And when he uses the Spark of Fortune, you usually want to place your monuments quite quickly, especially early on, because like this upgrade right here just gives him 5 stars immediately. He can use again, he can reinvest them, and it also gives him an additional star per turn. Like that's a play I see quite often, that people sit on their monuments for way too long and they steadily lose value the longer you sit on them.
And now back to Chris, where we have been talking about the border growth play so much that he just gets a population rune anyways, and the play all along just does not matter anymore, because now he just gets the first giant basically for free because the population.
Yeah, and he places the Spark of Fortune in the front, but he cannot pop a giant there yet. He was 2 population short. And Vorce is the first one to get mathematics now. But
Voss is first in getting the mathematics tech. However, Voss has not established really a whole lot of lumber huts along the way, and Chris does get a lot of value out of all his lumber huts, all of sawmills, all of sawmills he's going to place in the future, because he's already placed all these lumber huts. He doesn't need to place them anymore. It's a lot of stars in the economy that he was able to invest earlier in the game that Voss is going to be lacking out on now.
Yeah, and what you can also see is that like Chris really was lagging behind in army early on. Like now he has 7 archers sitting there, marching towards Vorce, 2 giants as well, and as you can see, like, Vorce was forced to back off with his units. And Chris can be on the aggressive side now, right? Like, he moves up right next to his cities, immediately kills the newly trained warrior. The veteran sword, putting some pressure on the side as well, and now he makes a level 5 sawmill in the capital. And like also like seeing that catapult there in the front for Vorce is like it's so annoying to have that catapult yeah, in range of like 2 of your cities, so you basically cannot really use them. And Vorce decides that he wants to go for riders to try to deal with like this archer mass and the catapults that are about to come.
Yeah. So currently the route for both players is kind of like, now you've got the army of archers, but you can't really engage with just that and the giants, so we now support the giants with catapults maybe, be efficient with it. But more importantly, the next route for both players is into riding, and then either we go into knights or we go into markets. That's the 2 options that both players currently have. Markets crucially work really well with sawmills. If we look at Chris's position, he's got a level 5 sawmill on his capital and a level 3 sawmill on his second village. There's a spot in between where if you place the market on your capital, that will be a level 8 market. The entry cost for him to do that, I did the math earlier, I think it is 41 stars for 1 market off the bat. So 8 for riding, 12 for roads, that's 20, plus trade is 36, plus the market is plus 5, so 41. But then that market itself pays itself off in just 5 turns. And he can then place more markets as well elsewhere, right? So crucially, that's going to be a huge jump that Chris is going to try and work towards. And on the other hand, Voss doesn't really have those options for really good market spots. So it could still work towards markets, but it's not going to be as effective. And crucially, if we see at the army disparity that we have going on now, and especially with that catapult, if Voss doesn't want to lose the cities, then he might need to get knights as soon as possible.
Yeah, as you can see, like Chris right now has 27 stars. Next turn he's going to get another 20. So if he spends at most 6 stars on other things until then, he's able to place a market next turn. And what you also have to keep in mind, like you said, the market pays off within 5 turns. But it's also like riding and roads are like super useful tags for fighting as well. So
of course, yes.
So if you keep in mind that you probably want these 2 tags anyways, you only end up spending the 16 stars on trade and the 5 for a market, which pays off in less than 3 turns. Yeah, here also like a nice cheeky play with moving that archer in melee range and then promoting it after taking damage.
Now it's really difficult for him to actually kill that archer. It is a veteran, it's difficult to kill, and therefore he doesn't even try. We get a free siege here, denying 3 stars of income. Voss does claim a village on the west, which is completely useless for him because it has no more than 1 fish in it. And now we get the market set up.
Vorce also picked up 3 spirit before capturing that village, so he definitely wants to go for a knight here. Right now he's mainly building up catapults, but Chris is thinking the same, he also picks up 3 spirit.
But crucially, Chris can fund that, right? Chris is able to fund that because he has this market advantage. Now we get an explorer, it does go into the corner, we have another mountain ruin happening here.
Yeah, like with this explorer I agree a lot more, because like Chris already is at 34 stars per turn. That 1 workshop is not going to be as impactful as the vision.
Anymore, that is. But also the secondary lighthouse there, nicely shaped, the explorer. It's gonna allow him to potentially get another... Oh, now it goes quickly, we have the knights here. Potentially get another giant in his capital with roads.
What I notice here is that Chris is kind of scared to walk in, right? Like, it kind of feels like Vorce set up a death trap here. So he sees that catapult and the giant behind the city, and like, I mean, these two units alone can weaken a giant to a pretty low amount of HP, but Vorce actually does not have another catapult in range. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out, that Chris is just keeping his knights stationary in front of Vorce's defenses.
We talk about efficiency, right? That's like also the thing. Using a giant to siege a city that you know the siege is not going to last because there's 100% one catapult in range, there's 100% two archers in range, and there's a giant in range. That's also the thing. Giants have an attack stat of 5 and a defense stat of 4. So if you have two giants face on, whoever attacks, unless the other person has a defense bonus on that giant, then it doesn't matter. Whoever attacks with that giant is gonna eat a lot of damage. So stepping onto the village to siege with a giant, to eat a catapult shot, to eat 2 archer shots and a giant hit, which I believe kills a giant. Let me double check that real quick for you. So we have a catapult, archers, and a giant. It doesn't quite kill a giant. The giant would survive with 8 HP in that order that I just said. If you do a different order, I believe you can get a giant slightly more damage, but then you could probably finish it off with the rider over there. It's not that effective, right? We have talked about how you don't want your opponent to hand out 3 archers to your opponent. And that also applies to your giants. You don't want them to just get melted right now. So it's kind of a standoff happening right here.
Yeah, like forever who advances, it feels like bad to advance because you immediately lose like a lot of units by walking into the range of your opponent's
There is a second catapult in range, by the way. I don't know if you saw this, but in the west and city, there's a catapult.
Ah, yeah, right. So there's a second catapult in range.
We didn't even see it, but yes, there is another catapult in range. So that giant, if it steps onto that village, is gonna get absolutely shredded for no value except denying 3 stars of income for the siege.
Yeah, Chris doesn't even see that catapult over there.
Yeah. And that is crucial because we also saw another siege earlier in this turn from Chris where he used a rider to kill an archer and bounce into the city. Something along the lines like that. Which the rider costs 3 stars. The city would produce 5 stars of income, so that in itself is already productive. But also, crucially, Chris has a huge economy advantage with the markets that Voss doesn't have. So even if he was to go negative on that, he would still be positive overall because the income disparity is so high.
Yeah, but did you see what Vorce also did this turn?
Trains? Did he train the knight?
Yeah, that's right.
He trained the knight.
He trained a knight with 19 stars per turn. He does not have a lot, but he has a knight and 2 giants and 3 catapults.
And now does Chris see the knight?
No.
Chris does not see the knight.
Chris just barely does not have vision on the knight. But he has his own knight.
Imagine one of these players would have gone diplomacy. Diplomacy would actually give you vision on the capital, so he would have been able to see it. Yeah, no, but that crucially diplomacy would have been for another day, right? For later on, where you can use the cloaks later. Right now, it's kind of they're forced to go the route of knights, and yeah, Chris does not have the vision.
Yeah, let's see what Chris ends up doing here. I think he made a mistake there, right? Like he could have moved one archer up to hit the giant and then hit with the knight. I think a knight only dies when attacking a giant. Then the defending giant is at full HP still.
Let me check on that.
Yeah, maybe you can fact check that really quick.
Yeah, the knight would have survived if the giant had 3 HP less. Yeah, so if, as you said, yeah, that's another thing. If he would have been able to step one archer forward to hit the giant, the knight would have been able to survive with 1 HP and again deny 1 round of income on that city.
Yeah, so now really aggressively training the knight right in the front. And yeah, I think Vorce still sees that he can't get his knight through anywhere. And now Chris is like, okay, I'm done with this. I'm going in.
Did you see that play though? Did you see that play? What Voss just did? Voss got spiritualism to grow a forest south of Olway. That way, if you don't know, there are two types of rough terrain. What is rough terrain? Rough terrain is terrain where if a unit walks onto it without using a road, it loses all its remaining movement points, right? So he can't use a road to run into the forest because it is not his own. Like the territory is occupied. It's the city territory of Voss, so he can't. Even if there was a road, he couldn't be able to use it. He wouldn't be able to use it.
Yeah,
So
so
therefore, that
basically
forest
he can move.
fully blocks
Oh, sorry.
any knight movement further into his territory.
A knight can move all the way until the knight hits the forest, but the knight cannot move past the forest.
Yeah.
And that is why Vorce places that forest there, because if you take a look at like the terrain over here, like there's this 4-tile wide passage southeast of Vorce cities. And as you pointed out, only Vorce can use the roads placed inside these city borders. And right now, like the southwestern part of that passage is already covered with forests and mountains. So there's only this one tile left that is like the potential weak point with defense. And so Voice decides to research spiritualism and place the forest. Even though his economy is like really, yeah, it's not in a good shape, right? He's at 19 stars per turn playing against like double of that from Chris.
It is kind of a desperation move, right? But at the same time, now we see that because Chris doesn't have any vision on it, he goes in like this. Oh, this is gonna hurt to watch, isn't it?
Yeah, it really hates when that happens to you. Again, if you take a look at like how the units are positioned right now, if there wasn't that forest in that tile, Chris could, I'm not sure if he could actually use one knight to snipe that rider that is zone of controlling him. Maybe it would be possible, but I guess it doesn't matter anyways because there's this forest blocking. So Chris can't reach like Vorce's backline with the rider, catapult, archers and warrior, and critically also the knight. And yeah, I think Chris feels like he doesn't want to keep having the standoff. Maybe he thinks that Vorce doesn't have knights yet and he wants to make the attack before Vorce gets to knights.
Yeah.
So he moves everything in. Wait, did he buy spiritualism or did he get it from
He
the
did.
rune?
He got the star rune of that rune, and he got spiritualism with it to grow the forest to get some better market spots, and also Kushi later get another giant in his capital and that giant as well.
Yeah, but now let's embrace this turn from Vorce. So right now he's at 11 stars. 11 stars per turn. Compared to Chris's 39 stars per turn. He's sieged in 2 cities by giants. He has 3 catapults, a knight, 2 giants, and like some other trash units. But crucially, he sets up a chain for his knight. And
Oh, and the resign comes in.
he
5,
just chains
6,
through everything.
7,
Chris resigns midway through
9,
already.
10, 11. Make sure to get the unsiege to 12. 12 units knight chained.
Yeah, and for good
Ouch.
matter, he also cleans up both sieges afterwards to show us that he obviously could have pulled that off.
That hurts to watch. And we do see a resign come in though. I want to say though that at some point, you should never give up to play. Okay, maybe at some point you can give up, but like in this case, I would even argue that Chris still can win this game even after this devastating knight chain, because he has this huge economy advantage, right? Like Voss has no roads, Voss has no markets, Chris has a huge the income disparity is 19 stars a turn from Voss and 39 stars a turn from Chris. It's the siege is still in there, that's why it says 14, but it's 19 stars per turn from Voss. So Chris makes twice as many stars per turn. The city count is the same. So even after this devastating blow, there's still a lot of giant potential, and there's still a lot. I mean, it's a rough setback for sure, but you know, never give up. You can still win these games. It was a really nice night chain, and a really nice game overall. I mean, it was really well played from both sides. So you gotta be honest. It is a live game. You can't forget that. This is a live game. So those players didn't have much time to think and play and whatnot. They were playing at the go. They were doing everything a matter of minutes. So even though under this time pressure, they were able to do all these plays. And yeah, it was an amazing game. Wow.
Yeah, I have to say it was like a really cool game. Like in the beginning, Vorce pulled ahead, he secured the contested city and the contested ruin. But when Chris bounced back, like he also got some decent ruins, right? That population ruin helped him out, and he also didn't have to invest into climbing so early. And then he had this fascinating market, level 8 market right away,
Really
Which-
nice tent.
accelerated his economy a lot. He also got to knights first, but then in the end he got a little bit impatient and got punished for it.
Yeah, my last words to this game are that I would like to apologize to the city of Leywane because I said earlier that this city is completely useless because it has nothing more than one fish on it, but this catapult did a phenomenal job at unsieging and preparing the night chain to make it possible in the first place. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you had a wonderful time watching this analyzed gameplay of this Polysseum final. Again, if you want to see more or want to play yourself, then you can sign up in the link in the description in the Challenger mode to play those tournaments yourself, to maybe be featured in one of these in the future as well.
Yeah, if you want to see more Polysseum content, click the Quetzali video on the screen. Take care, see you in the next one. Bye.